On the Odili home invasion, former President Jonathan urges federal government to review whistleblower policy. And Vice President Yemi Osibajo urges lawyers to end slow judicial process. Well, this is Plus Politics. I am Mary Anoko. Former President Goodluck Jonathan has called for the modification of the whistleblower policy, saying it can damage the economy if not well managed. He made the recommendation while reacting to the invasion of the Abuja residence of a judge of the Supreme Court, Justice Mary Odili, allegedly on the information given by a whistleblower. Well, joining us to discuss this is legal practitioner Chris Itamunola and former special advisor to the Rivers State Governor, Opunabo Inko Tara. Thank you very much, Mr. Tara, for joining us.
Good evening, Marianne, and good evening, dear.
You and I have spoken about this invasion before, but then we're looking at it from the whistleblower policy angle. Let's revisit this issue of whistleblowers. Now, we know that the whistleblower policy became more known of when the government came up with the idea of people returning funds or people reporting, looters, public office looters. And of course, we all know how that ended. A lot of these whistleblowers ended up not being as protected as they should be. A couple of them complained of the monies because the percentage of these monies was supposed to be given to them. But in terms of the Mary Odili situation, how does this even play out in the first instance?
Well, the whole thing turned out to be messy when the Attorney General of the Federation denied involvement. Of course, the magistrate agreed that it was issued, but the reasons he advanced were ridiculous because he said it was they went to the wrong address and they gave me wrong information. As sad as it is, I don't think we should really bother about a search warrant issued against any particular person because nobody is insulated from prosecution. Nobody is immune from prosecution. And when they issue a search warrant, it does not necessarily mean what they actually went for could be found in the home of the person's property that has just been searched. Nevertheless, Nigerians are worried because of the abuse. It is being weaponized right now to embarrass people. I also want to state this, that I also disagree with the situation where a search warrant will be issued and the operatives that are supposed to execute the search warrants are being frustrated, because that will have a negative effect on our justice system. Nevertheless, the only way we can end this unnecessary abuse of the issuance of search warrants is to ensure, for example, on the part of the whistleblowers, if an information is given to the security operatives, they should ensure that they ascertain the veracity of that information. They should not just swing into action immediately without carrying out investigation. They should ensure that proper investigation is being carried out before they swing into action, because it could become embarrassing to the victim. And just like now, the credibility of a search warrant is being questioned. If I see a search warrant today, honestly, I will not want to honor that search warrant. That's why I say it has a negative effect on our justice system, because I will doubt, impugn the authenticity of it. A situation where, what are the contents of a search warrant? One, it must have the date and time of issue. Two, a confirmation of the probable cause to search. Three, even the period that the operative will move in to carry out the search, the period is even stated. So it is not of your own will, of your own volition that you move in when you want to move it. It is stated. So when all those things are stated, the address of the house to be searched, and that's where I say it is that laughable when they say it was done in error. Because if this at the Mary Odilip, Justice Mary Odilip's house is, for example, number 10 B.B. Rabi Street, and on that paper 10 B.B. Rabi Street is written, or 9 B.B. Rabi Street, there is no way you can go to number 10 B.B. Rabi Street. It's not possible. Which means no investigation was carried out. And that is why it is generating the furor it is generating. And that is why it is being perceived as witch hunting.
Let me come in there. I'm curious. I'm curious.
I don't think it has to do with assassination. Some are even saying it has to do with bringing her into disrepute so that she will not emerge as the CDN, executive of being a poverty of logic, because she is to retire next year, while the CGN will retire the year after. So the issue of succession does not even come in. You know,
I want to ask about the modus operandi, because search warrants, yes, are very important, but then how do they? You talked about how it's being carried out, the time, and there have been several times where security agencies, especially the Department of State Services, break into houses at odd hours of the night. So I'm wondering, that time that is stated on the warrant, why is it not adhered to strictly? And the issue of mistakes,
Sorry, that time, I didn't get that. That time that what?
You said that the time that they need to effect that search is also clearly written on the warrant.
Yes.
But then we see, that's what I'm asking, the adherence is the issue here, because I have taken the report of a man whose house was broken into by DSS agents, and they were not necessarily looking for him. They were looking for someone else. So this can actually be a mistake, can't it? But then it's the way they carry out the search that should be questioned here. Why go about it as if you were there to assassinate or kill a person? Because The way they went about it, the man lost money that he kept in his house. He lost jewelry. They destroyed the appliances in his house, etc., etc. Is that how a search warrant is supposed to be carried out?
If that search warrant, because like I said, it will have a period on it. So if the operatives move in not within that period stipulated by the magistrate or the judge, then it's an illegal act. Then you sue. It's an illegal act. Just like in murder cases, you have the time when to execute. You cannot, the prisoner or the executioner cannot just get a money to say, today it has to be 2 o'clock, that's when I have the time. No, everything is stated. If you do it before, it's illegal. You do it after, it's illegal. Before it's murder, after it's murder. Everything is timed. So if that's why they say period, maybe on it you could say 10 p.m., between 10 and 11, or 10 p.m., or 12 p.m. But if they say so, if the court grants it, for whatever security reasons, the court grants it, then the court has granted it. But if the court doesn't, then the operatives acted illegally, and probably that is why people are weaving the interpretation of assassination. That's why they are weaving. And secondly, don't forget that you have the antecedent, where Buhari has always ordered, right from when he was the military dictator to date, has always ordered the security to invade the residences of judges and justices. And that's why this is generated that what do you have against the judiciary?
But the presidency, has not in any way been incriminated in this issue. It's the person who's been fingered in this issue was the Attorney General.
The office of the Attorney General. The office of the Attorney General, of course, the Attorney General is not the President. The office of the Attorney General was accused. Don't forget that. That is one. And number two.
But the Attorney General is not the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, sir.
Sorry?
The Attorney General is the Attorney General of the Federation, not the President of the Federal Republic.
He acts at the behest of the President. He acts at the behest of the President. There is no way there will be a raid on the premises of judges and justices without knowledge. Supreme Court justice without the imprimatur of Mr. President. That is not possible. That is not given how highly placed they are. It is definitely not possible. And the Attorney General himself being a lawyer, it's a very senior advocate of Nigeria. It's definitely not possible. He must have gotten the consent because he would have been queried by Mr. President. So he must have gotten the consent of Mr. President for him to have done that. You cannot do that of his own volition. You cannot do that so much. It's not possible. That's not possible.
Nobody can come. Let me refer to the statement by former President Goodluck Jonathan. I'd like to quote him directly. He said the concept of whistleblowing helps to give information, but that information should be slightly investigated. And if you need to be sure before you strike, it should be modified so that security operatives do not go into the voice of discoveries. If things are not done properly, he says, people will exploit it to their advantage. People who give wrong information to security operatives should also be punished. As much as whistleblowing is okay, it will help to control it. It must be done in a way that it will not injure the economy. I'm trying to put side by side the whistleblowing issue and the economy and what ties it together.
That is exactly what is a little bit confusing to me, because whistleblowing is all about giving information secretly, surreptitiously to the establishment for them to carry out certain actions, information that will help the economy. For example, you have a criminal, you have an armed robber, or you have a permanent secretary or an auditor general, or somebody is committing some sort of fraud in the ministry. You go and disclose to the authorities so that they investigate. That's what he's talking about. That's why I say you don't just take the information hook, line, and sinker. You know, because what if that information is a function of laws? What if the informant louse or reviles the victim and will just come up to say, this man, just because he's his political enemy, or just because he took his girlfriend, or just because he slept with his wife, will now say this man is involved in this. I know so many cases like that this man is involved in this, and in actual fact, the man is innocent. And if you have such an informant, that dispenses mendacity, then that informant himself. And that's why every whistleblower, the operatives must ensure that they know the houses. They know them to their houses. If you come and give me any information, you must show me where you reside, your office, or something. I must trace you to something, your village, everything. So that if that information is questionable, I will come back for you. And that will very large extent will discourage dispensation of falsehood. That is exactly what Jonathan is talking about. And I completely agree. But then, on the issue of having whistleblowing will have a negative effect on the economy, I don't really think so. I don't know why he's saying that. I cannot question his own argument. But the truth about it is that it is rather positive than negative. Because if, for example, now I say Marianne is an armed robber, and they invade Marianne's house, or Marianne is a gun runner, she has guns at home, and they invade Marianne's house and there is no gun. The only negative aspect is on the image of Marianne, if it is proved beyond reasonable doubt that there is no gun in her house. That's the only thing. But how will that affect the economy is what I cannot reconcile. I don't know. I'm not saying what he's saying is not correct.
Okay.
But I cannot fathom it. I cannot fathom how it's going to affect the economy negatively. Because if I'm sure of my information, and I disclose that information to you, and you can carry out, if it works, fine. Even if it doesn't work, how does it affect the economy? I can't comprehend that, honestly. He might have his reasons. Maybe if he's asked, he's going to expatiate. He's going to elucidate. But I cannot, as I sit here now, tell you how negatively, but I can explain how positively, like in the issue of fraud and so on. But negatively, I don't understand how it's going to affect the economy.
Let's come back to the way or the modus operandi of, searches in different houses at the behest of, a magistrate or, somebody being armed with that warrant. We have seen many people whose houses were broken into, like I said earlier on, who sometimes are shot dead because maybe they're resisting or maybe they were not ready for this invasion. Or, sometimes people may be said to be feigning ignorance, but then they have no idea because you're in the wrong house. I think one of the most recent is that the DSS raided the house of one of the ex-Big Brother Africa housemates, and she was scantily clad. The day after she posted about it and said that she was still, facing trauma from what happened the night before. Now, if they had not necessarily recognized that because she was a public figure, she probably would have been shot dead or something bad would have happened. Is it just about reviewing this policy of whistleblowing, or should we also be reviewing these searches or breaking into these homes? I'm going to pose that question to Mr. Taminola. I'm sorry, let me pose that question to Mr. Taminola because he's a lawyer. Mr. Taminola, the issue of whistleblowing is not just that of people giving misinformation or wrong information, but how about the searches and how it's done? Many people have fallen prey to, maybe a wrong house, a wrong residence, or a wrong person, a case of a wrong person. And sometimes these people end up being shot dead or being beaten or maimed. So what about reviewing that process of searching or taking a person into custody? The brutality that follows.
Well, let me say good evening to you, Adora. Let me say good evening to Marianne, my friend, my brother in Kotaria that I haven't seen for so many months now. And
good evening.
My brother, good evening. See, the law is very clear. When it comes to issue of summons, when it comes to execution of warrants and whatsoever, the law is clear. It's governed by the Administration of Criminal Justice Act number 7 of 2015. There is nothing wrong with the law. There is everything wrong about the implementation. When we are talking about the aspect of whistleblowing, the important thing is he who alleges must prove. There is nothing wrong. I mean, for the aspect of whistleblowing, let us first of all establish that where there is a right, there is obligation. And because there is a right, because there is a right and obligation, there is also a benefit. And if there is a benefit, there must also be sanction in the context that when the whistleblower is found to be culpable, what happens to him? Because based on that information that is adduced, the magistrate takes an action. And of course, in order to be able to issue the warrant, the law is Section 35, Section 36, Section 37, Section 38 of what they call it, the Part 3 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. The magistrate will not just act in the fact, will not act. The magistrate is expected to know the facts. The magistrate is expected to be furnished with who you are going to arrest. The magistrate is expected to be furnished with that information regarding the identity, the location, and whatsoever. So based on that, you can't be talking about a misnomer. You can't be talking about error. You can't be talking about a misplacement. You can't say you are going to...
But these are the claims that were made by the magistrate. We all heard it.
No, but so somewhere along the line, once what they call it, there is a breach. Because now you have gone to the house of a particular person, that person has a right under the Nigerian Constitution, that Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution. When you are wrong, that person has the powers to come against you, whether you are federal government, whether you are a state government, you are local government, whether you are the Nigerian police and whatsoever. The unfortunate challenge I have here is that our institutions are not just working. Let's cast our mind back to what they call it, the Black Lives Must Be Saved incident in America.
Black Lives Matter.
Up till today, we are still, I mean, there are people that are still going in. Those particular people that initiated and executed that incident, we know what has happened to them. And the trial was public and whatsoever. For these people that have come, whether the Attorney General is complicit, if the Attorney General is complicit, I mean, the beginning of the journey is that he should be honorable enough to simply say, I resign, I step aside. And of course, not only that, if he's culpable, he's not above the law. He should definitely be tried. There must be a proper investigation.
But the Attorney General has said that he doesn't know anybody. He doesn't know this man. He's never met him ever before in his life. And so that what he's telling us is cock and bull stories. So,
Adora, the reason why those statements
Marianne.
were made is... Sorry, Miriam, I beg your pardon. Apologies. Miriam, the simple reason why those statements could be had is because we have weak institutions. Because on the basis of strong institutions, look, investigations will be made within weeks, within days, within months. Look, Donald Trump was alleged to have done something in his wee days, in his closing days. Up till today, investigations are still going on regarding the invasion of the White House, I mean of the Capitol and so on. So the simple problem is that you get into a party, you win you get into government based on a party, and then there are breaches, there are infractions, and somebody sits back and says, okay, this is a member of party A, party B, and on the basis of that, rather than to give sanctions, investigations, appropriate sanctions for infractions, what you do is to turn the other way around. For goodness sake, if you could do this to the justice of the highest court of the land, the Supreme Court, then who are you and me? It's unfortunate.
Quickly, before we go, because we're running out of time, Mr. Taminola, you're saying that the Attorney General needs to be put on trial or investigated because of the claims that have been made. The magistrate on one hand is saying it was a misnomer, misinformation, it was a wrong residence, and you have clearly stated that he needs to have the right information. What if he was also misled? Secondly, where is the precedence in this country that a highly placed person like the Attorney General of the Federation, who is also a political appointee of the president, is being investigated on that level, especially when it's been watered down to he said, she said, I don't know this person, etc.?
Look, it's still the same challenge we are talking about. It's because of weak institutions. Because at the end of the day, who is the Attorney General of the Federation? I mean, for goodness sake, it came in by law. His operations are by law. Look at what happens in South Africa. We are talking about Zuma. We are talking about other officers. Look at Oka that was taken in the regarding certain infractions emanating from Nigeria. Where is that man today and whatsoever? The most important thing is, there is nothing like ignorance of the law. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. That it was done in error. How do you know who is at fault except by an investigation? How do you know whether the Attorney General, the magistrate had done something? A magistrate is expected to act judiciously and judicially. You are expected to take a decision judiciously and judicially. And if in the course of it is found that definitely you haven't exercised what they call it, your decision judiciously and judicially, what will happen? You must be investigated. There are appropriate authorities. The NJC is there to look into the infractions of such a magistrate. And then for the Attorney General, for goodness sake, it is because some of us have proved ourselves to be higher than the law. Well, to be higher bets and so on. So no matter what we are talking about, just go back that if this could happen to Honorable Justice Mary Odili, imagine what will happen to the common man on the street. Imagine what will happen to Ikotaria that is there and whatsoever. It is pathetic, and we need a foundational restructuring. Okay. Definitely.
Well, we'll keep our eyes on that story as it develops. But I want to say thank you to Opunabo Inko Tare and, of course, Chris Itamola. We're out of time. We're out of time in one sentence because we need to go.
Those operatives that have been arrested, what has happened to them? We want to know. Like Itamola rightly said, they should be prosecuted and let the Attorney General go to court to prove his innocence.
We'll wait and see what happens. We'll wait and see what happens. But thank you very much. Chris Itamola, Opunabo Inko Tare, thank you very much for joining us on this conversation.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you all for staying with us. We'll take a short break. And when we return, we examine the need for judicial reforms in Nigeria. Stay with us.
Andy Obama, Fred is a lowering. In this case, there is nobody supports him. The international community monitored the election, and the international community represented by the EU and UK delegation is quite impressed about the processes and the outcome. The media, both local and international, were there. They're quite impressed. A lot of civil society groups were impressed. And all the political parties, including the APC, starting with the national leader of the APC, President Muhammadu Buhari, who has not only congratulated the winner, but says he's looking forward to working closely with Professor Soludo towards the development of not just Anambra State, but the entire Southeast.
You know, obviously, with what the Boko Haram started, that has now graduated to the advanced level, even the name of the group suggests to you that there is a hyper intolerance to holding divergent religious belief. Islamic State of West African countries. And what is the intention? To establish the Islamic Caliphate. So that means they are not willing to accommodate other religions. And it's not fair, really.
Nigeria has such a rich heritage. It has such a rich history.
The Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, SAN, has said that as a matter of urgency, the Nigerian judiciary must address the issue of delays in processing cases through the courts. This is as he referred to the delays in the Nigerian judicial process as the elephant in the room, wondering what would happen to the country's legal profession in another 50 years, given the gridlock in processing cases through the courts and the question of the integrity of the legal process. Now, joining us to discuss this is legal practitioner Tunji Abdulhamid. Thank you very much, Mr. Abdulhamid, for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
Every single time conversations like this come up, I look closely at the NJC, I look closely at those on the bench, and of course the NBA, in the role that they play in making sure that the judicial process, the wheels of it in itself is oiled so that it can move faster. But I want to go first to the issue that the Vice President raised, talking about judicial reforms. I still know that the federal government is still fighting with states on the issue of judicial autonomy for local governments and even states. Let's start with that. Why is that still a problem in 2021?
Yeah, because we are in a country where people in authority disregard the law. The people in authority doesn't bother about what the law says. They only bother about what they want to do and what they think they should do. Because the issue of autonomy has been in the Constitution since 2010 or so, and I don't know why it's not being implemented to date. In fact, to the extent that the president even made an executive order, a superfluous order, trying to enforce the provision of the Constitution, yet we have not heard anything about it. So I think it's a confirmation of the kind of country we are. We are in a country where we don't care about law, especially those in authority. They ignore the law when it does not suit them, and they follow the law when it suits them. That's why we're having the problem in this regard. It is clear in the Constitution, Section 121 says that the judiciary must have autonomy. But to date, we are still begging them to have it, and not because there won't be any consequences, and they will continue to do that.
I'm going to come back to the consequences part, but let's look at the reforms. You are obviously a lawyer. You work in the system. You have frustrations, and when we talk about reforms, what are the basic or the front burner reforms that we as a country need to make to better the processes in our judicial system?
I think the reform the major ones are these. One, we need to look at the mode of appointment of judges. That is one of them. We just talked about one now, the autonomy is also part of it, because lack of autonomy is hindering the capacity of the judiciary to an extent. Because when the judiciary believe that, look, for them to get the needed finance, they must come in hand to the executive. They will do the bidding of the executive, and therefore there won't be justice. They will only do what the executive want them to do. So autonomy is one of the major reforms that we need to do. We need to ensure that this issue of reform is complied with, and people, the state, give the judiciary the required autonomy. The appointment, like I said again, is another aspect of it. Today, appointment of judges are based on not based on merit, no longer. It's based on the relationship. It's based on the influence.
What sort of relationships are you talking about?
If you look at if you look at our judiciary today, if you see the name of the people being appointed, you will realize that they are related to either a sitting judge, a retired judge, a person in position of authority in the country, and that are the kind of people you see in the position of authority as judges these days. And most of them don't merit it because they don't know what the law is. They don't know. We do respect.
But how come they are still sitting there? How come that they're appointed and they're still sitting there? Nobody's contesting it.
Because we're in Nigeria.
The same.
Anything goes.
But why do the lawyers complain if they have not contested it? I'm sorry, in one breath, we're accusing, many have accused Mr. President of not bringing meritocracy into his appointment.
That is in the case of the states.
But can't it be contested?
Hello?
Can it not be contested by
that's what I'm saying, that those are the kind of reform that we need now. We need a situation whereby appointment of judges will be taken out of the governor, in the hands of the governor and the president. The president appoints or approve those who will be appointed as the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court judges. So subject to the convention by the NJC. So if you take away that from the executive and give it directly to maybe a body or whatever, NJC or somebody,
to solely be responsible for the appointment of judges. Then there won't be any need for those in the judiciary to be subservient to the executive, because we have three arms of government in this country. But most times we see judiciary as the baby of the arm. They are, as far as I'm concerned, I don't believe Mr. President should be number one. We have three number one citizens in this country. The executive, the head of the executive is number one. The head of the state should be number one. The head of the judiciary should be number one. In fact, to the extent that judiciary today is behind the Senate president, is behind the deputy Senate president. Probably, I'm not too sure whether he's also not behind the deputy speaker or speaker of the House of Representatives. So, a head of an organ of the government is now made number 5 or number 4 in the country. You can see the injustice in that regard. So, what I'm saying is that, look, we need to take away appointment of judges from the governors. The governor should not be responsible for appointing the judges, because he who pay the pipers, they take the tone. So the tune. So in other words, when you know that your appointment you don't have anything to do with the executive, you'll be bold. You'll be bold to attack or do the right thing without any fear or favor from those government. Because the situation whereby we are in this country today, where governors will now donate cars to the executive to the judiciary, and they will do as if they are dashing them the car, or they are just doing them a favor. That is not a favor. It's not be the responsibility of the governor buying cars for the judiciary. When you buy cars for the judiciary, then you are indirectly buying them. Whenever you need them, they will have to budge, and that's what we're having here. So appointment is one of the issue we need to look into. And then majorly again, we need to improve our infrastructure. The courts are not what it is. The system, the situation in the court is bad. If you enter some courtroom, you will think you are in a market, and then it will look like most times when there's no light, there's no work. But our judges still write in London at this age. So we need to improve on technology as well to ensure that, look, things move faster in this country. We need to appoint people with integrity, people who can stand on their own to be in the judiciary. And most importantly, we need to look for people who knows the law, who have, in other words, merit should be major consideration for appointing a judge, not your relationship with people in authority. Because, like I said again, I repeat it again. Look at the name of judges you see in the country. The new one being appointed. I'm not talking about the higher courts. I'm talking about the high court, for instance. Mm-hmm. You see mostly they are related to those in authority or those in the judiciary. In other words, either at the Court of Appeal, Supreme Court, High Court, or former judges or former governors, former present governors. Those are the people, kind of people you see in bench. And by the time they get to the place, the work becomes heavier for them, and they won't be able to do anything.
I want to refer to something that happens in the U.S. I know we don't use the same constitution, and the modus operandi for Nigeria and the U.S. is different. But we see that the people who run for district attorneys, they run for it like it's an office. So they're elected into those offices as district attorneys. But because we do not necessarily have district attorneys and our system of government is different, I'm thinking, why can't these people who are running for judges or who want to be in those seats do the same thing? Can we not adjust the constitution to favor that processing? And again, the reason why I asked that question earlier, why the members of the judiciary are a bit silent on this issue is, I remember some time ago when the president, Mr. President, was at the NBA, I think it was a year ago or so, at the NBA conference, and he did say something about the fact that the rule of law can take, a seat, while national security it should be the major issue. And the people who were there applauded the president. So again, the judiciary, all of you, including the NBA, the bench, every single person, can I say that you're all complicit? And that's why what is happening, and that's why you're also taking the backbench in the nation's, process.
Not all of us were clapping. Few people who are trying to please the president, who are trying. In Nigeria, even the president, if he cough, some people will clap. Nigeria, some people are just like that. They just want to satisfy and just see themselves as we like the president, we are following him for sentiment purposes and for purpose of I don't want to use that adjective. It won't be said as if I'm abusing anybody. But like I said, it's not everybody. If we follow the trend thereafter, most lawyers criticize that particular comment, and it was widely criticized by the majority of the lawyers, that are respected lawyers, not sycophants like those who are clapping at that time. Most time, apparently most people don't are even clapping, did not even hear what he said, but just clapping because in Nigeria we are just like that. People just want to be in the good book of those in authority, whether it's doing the right thing or wrong thing, and that's one of our major problem in this country. Rather than tell them the truth, they just want to be clapping for them to see us to say they are doing well. They are doing well. So it's not about see people are not talking. When people are talking, you can see the recent, just like what your last discussion regarding inflation of Justice Odile's house. People are talking about it. People have been talking. And that was not the first time. It happened the other time, and nothing happened. So you see, the problem we have in this country is that executives see themselves as the alpha and omega, and they can do and undo because they control all the security apparatus, they control the money, they control everything. So the other people are subservient to them, and that's why they are able to do whatever they are doing in that regard. It's not as if the people are not talking. We are talking. The people are not yielding. The talk is not yielding results. We have been complaining. We have been talking about this. We have been even talking about this appointment of judges that look use merit rather than influence. But nobody is listening to us, and nothing can be happen. And because it's Nigeria. Anything can happen. Anything goes.
Finally, before I let you go, Femi Falana, of course, was at that event where the vice president was, and he spoke about the issue of governors appointing judges and that having to be stopped. He also said something, and I'd like to quote him directly. He noted that the customary court had been completely abandoned. He also added that the customary courts are courts that handle majority of the cases for the poor. Again, there's this saying that we have in Nigeria that the judiciary is the last hope of the common person. If the hope of the common person is being jettisoned, where does that leave the average Nigerian?
I won't lie to you. Today in our country, judiciary is not the last hope of the common man. The judiciary is about those who have influence. It's for those who have influence, those who have money. Because if you have influence, if you have money, you can. I'm sorry to say that. I'm sorry to say it's now a cash and carry. Some people are just That's why we are seeing so many conflicting judgments, because it's no longer based on position of law. It's based on personal interest, sentiments, and all those things. So as far as I'm concerned, the hope of common man, as far as the judiciary is concerned, I think it's gradually losing its value. And I'm not sure today the common man has seen anything. They don't even have any hope in judiciary as far as I'm concerned, because they see it as there's a lot of issues. There is a delay. There is no proper justice delivery. There is, they say delay. What's it called? Justice delay is justice denied. When you drag justice, then you are denying people justice. So as far as I'm concerned, it's sad that people are losing. The masses are losing hope in the judiciary. And is
there hope for the customary courts to be revived again? Because this is a very important court system for those at the grassroots.
It's not only about customary court. It's about everywhere, everything. Nigeria. It's not only this issue we are talking about. It's not about judiciary alone. It's a general issue entirely in the country. The system is generally not working, and that's why that's why judiciary is not accepted from that situation. If the system is working generally, judiciary will also be forced to work, but because it's not working, everything goes wrong. We have customary court that are working in some area. It was like what we call Sharia court in some parts of the country. It's customary court, and today most people have abandoned it. They see it as it's not a court of records. Some of them are not court of records, and and most of the cases they handle, they have to expand their jurisdiction if they want people to also participate see customary courts as part of the good system. They must improve in their jurisdiction and give them more power to be able to do more job that are being done by the High Court and the other courts.
Well, Tunji Abdulhamid is a legal practitioner. Thank you so much for joining us and being part of the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
It's my pleasure.
Well, I want to thank you all for being part of the conversation tonight, but I will leave you with a roundup of all of the conversations we've had from Monday to today. I am Mariana Cohn. See you on Monday.
What is the core responsibility of the army? The army is meant to ward off external aggression, unlike what we're having in Nigeria today. Not only in the southeast, we also have it all around Nigeria, where you have soldiers coming out from the barracks and taking up the responsibility of internal security. For me, it is totally unacceptable.
This policy is in the real sense when it comes to removal of subsidy, which I don't even think the issue is about subsidy here. It's about an attempt by the presidency, because we have more of the presidency than the president. There's an attempt by the presidency and NNPC alongside the international collaborators to ensure that they cripple the Nigerian economy, with this policy.
Honestly, here we hear some, like in every setting in all political gatherings, there will always be disaffection, there will always be complaints, there will always be people who will seek attention, there will always be people that just want to be pacified, there will be people who just want to rub on the back, a pat on the back, rub on the head. So I think, and I'm convinced that APC in Lagos is as strong as ever.
So you have the police policing the population, but nobody is policing the police. And that's the problem. So until the Police Service Commission, for instance, takes their job seriously of policing the police and holding them accountable for their actions, they're not going to see much changes.
How can we have peace without justice? Is that ever possible? Now you had to ask that question. Can you have peace without justice? After all the report where they do, they don't tell us anything. We want to know what happened. Who are the people responsible? Why did it have to happen? They're busy there saying that the report is rubbish. Anybody who won't follow them go mad, no problem. But me, I know that all of this is just simply boo-boo, playing to the gallery. His master's voice. And I don't want to be a part of all that shenanigans.
The first is the issue of referencing and cross-referencing, whether those things were done properly, because the issue of cross-referencing is very, very germane to the bill. The moment you do improper cross-referencing, it has very serious implications, especially when we have election petitions. The second issue we are looking at is the issue of topographical errors, whether there are topographical errors that can just be corrected. The third issue is whether any of the provisions of the bill violates the core intent of the Constitution, because as you are aware, the Constitution is the fundamental law of the land. Now, the fourth issue we are looking at is whether there are issues of proper sequencing, especially in relation to the dates. And you know, in relation to the work of the Commission, dates are very, very important. Then we're also looking at whether there are also provisions in the bill that are difficult to implement. We need to tell the president if there are provisions that are difficult to implement. Then we have to put the bill side by side with the existing legal framework, with the existing Electoral Act, and see whether there are provisions that have been deleted that needs to be restored, or whether there are provisions that need to be reworked on. So those are the things that the president asks us to look at. And the
recommendations through these reforms. I think that it's really, really important. You have to build that trust back. Indeed, our ambassador said this just today, as our secretary said when he was here in November as well.